Cameron Burgess, and you're listening to the Film Focus Podcast.
Fulham.
Hello and welcome to the Fulham Focus Podcast. My name is Jmac, your host, reporting live from my country estate. An entire weekend of hunting cock pheasant, clay pigeon shooting and Bollinger. 2 days straight thanks to 3 points in the bullet pouch Friday night before a Saturday morning sunrise. He ain't heavy, he's his brother. Take a bow, Stephen Sessignon. Cavalier Zero to Cavalier Hero. Harry Artificial Intelligence once again. Mitro Glycerin and a Dazzler knockout to see it all off. We'll be talking all about it. But first, thanks to Cameron Burgess for opening the show. Cameron joined our youth team as a teenager and was part of Steve Wigley's successful under-18 side, who made it to the Youth FA Cup final for the first time in the club's history. He made 4 first-team appearances under Felix Magath, but for a youngster coming through, it was always going to be a bad timing, given the mess we were in at the time. We wish Cameron the best of luck with the rest of his career, and you can read his Q&A with Danny, looking back at his Fulham experience on our website, fulhamfocus.com. All right, I've got my gun dogs with me. I've got a Welsh Springer Spaniel, Mr. Reese, and I have a ferocious French Bulldog in Mr. Boisclair. Let's go.
Fulham.
All right, guys. Well, it was great to have 3 points early on a Friday so we could just enjoy our weekend. So I'll go to you first. Mr. Boisclair, how are you, mate? And what did you think of the opening lineup?
Never mind that. Where the bloody hell have you been?
I've been in the countryside.
Been in the countryside? Oh.
Yep, I've been in the countryside.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's been very nice. I tell you what, it's a really nice area for the... Look, just what did you think of the lineup?
The lineup. It's funny, actually, because we were talking last week about whether or not Stephen Sessignon was ready and whether or not he'll play. And I said, fundamentally, he's nowhere near the first team. I can't see him playing. And lo and behold, here he is. He's in the team. Apparently, Dennis Adoy had some mysterious knee injury and wasn't anywhere near the team. And in steps Stephen Sesson. I thought he did really well, to be honest. The only other change, I think, was AK was back on the bench for Floyd Ayite. I wonder whether we're going to be using AK as kind of a weapon away from home to kind of bring on and terrorise defences, whereas, Ayite doesn't really have that impact when he comes off the bench. Otherwise, I thought the lineup was quite predictable, to be honest. We didn't really make any drastic changes from the lineup against Blackburn, and it worked.
I completely agree. It was obvious. That was one of the most notable things when you saw the lineup was Stephen Sessignon was finally playing. And it was actually a breath of fresh air. He seemed very, very reassured defensively, but also on the attack. What did you think, Mr. Baldwin?
Yeah, well, I agree with Frenchie to some extent. When the lineup was announced, that's where everyone's attention was going to go, because there's been a lot of talk. The royal we, discussed it on the podcast last week about whether or not he's ready. It's been sort of growing since pre-season. This talk about, can he play right back? I said, after the Brighton friendly, that I think he's more than capable of doing so. That's where all the attention was going to go. Other than that, I think, I'm going to agree with Frenchie. I assume you mean AK-47 with all this, because that's the thing we've got to establish now, is which AK do we talk about. Abubakar Kamara, I've said before. And
it's either the good one or the shit one, isn't it?
Well, that's my point. It's shit if he starts, but he's pretty good when he comes off the bench, which is what I think his role is going to have to be from here on out as an impact sub going forward, which is why, the Anthony Knockaert and Ivan Cavalier were always going to be, at some stage of the season, our 2 wide men with Mitro through the middle. I'm just surprised it took till the 3rd game for it to come through. Other than that, not really much talking point. I think most of us know roughly what our team is now.
Just going back to Stephen Sess as well,
yeah.
I think that the biggest kind of compliment you can pay is, like Baldo said, all kind of eyes were focused on him before the game. We've got this youngster, he's making his debut, but I didn't really notice him, and I think I mean that in a complimentary sense, because I wasn't nervous when he was on the ball. He kind of just slotted in seamlessly, and he looked really good.
Well, that's a huge point, isn't it? Because usually, I mean, I tend to feel like with the right back scenario we've had for the past few seasons, it's always quite obvious when there is a right back because there's always a bit of a fuck up going on. I thought Steven Sessie looked brilliant. I thought he was very good going forward as well as defensively. I mean, for someone his age looking so, I mean, there are already sort of talks of how he's probably a lot more potentially better off than Ryan Sessegnon as a defensive player, but that's a whole kettle of fish altogether. I think. Would you say then, Mr. Boisclair, that this would be your starting lineup going forward, as Mr. Rees just alluded to?
Well, I don't know about going forward, but I can't see that Steven Sess is not going to play on Wednesday against Millwall.
Sure.
I'd say he's definitely going to start, and I'd say that would be the team. But I still maintain that Bobby Reid has not signed for Fulham to sit on the bench.
Right.
And I think sooner rather than later, there'll be a way that he is integrated into that team. And kind of alluded to last week how he might come in for Ivan Cavallero. But Cavallero, the commentators the other night seemed to think that he wasn't having a good game, but I thought he had a much better game. And I don't just mean because he scored. I thought he looked much more comfortable on the ball, just generally, and looked much more of a threat.
Yeah, but the problem is with that, you say he's not going to come to sit on the bench, and absolutely he won't. But in any sort of debate, if you're going to put him in, who do you then take out? That's really the key bit. Where do you see us changing formation, maybe to a 4-2-3-1, and have him as a number 10 with then Kenny dropping back? That if you have to put him in, then you have to take someone out, and that's the question: who do you take out as a result?
But yeah, agreed. And I don't know the answer to that. But all the while we're winning, then you don't change your winning team as far as I'm concerned. But all I'm saying is eventually I think Bobby Reid will slot in somewhere.
I mean, I agree with you, Fredgie. I don't actually think Cavallero looked that bad in the first half. He was a little bit rusty and he almost scored for God's sake, but it was half-time. Obviously, I think a big positive from this game was not just the individual performances in the second half, was actually the half-time talk that Scott Parker must have given in the dressing room. I would love to have been in the fly on the wall just to have seen or heard what he said. And it reminded me a lot, this game, of the Brighton game at home last season, where we just looked completely different in the second half. And I think, obviously, Scott Parker is very good at turning around a bad bit of rust, if you see what I mean.
Did you see the interview with Scott Parker? He said that they asked him, "What did you say to the team at half time?" And he said, "I just want them to pass a bit more," which I thought was a really strange answer. But then when he kind of elaborated, he said that he thought that we were trying to rush the ball forward too quickly and we just needed to be a bit more patient in the build-up. And I think that's what we're starting to look really good at. We're starting to, once we do get the ball into that final third, we've then got the players that can really hurt teams. And, any defender at this level is going to be scared of Mitrovic, Cavallero and Anthony Knockaert. And I think all three of them did pretty well on Friday night.
And what are your thoughts on Cavallero, quickly, to sum up, Ivan? Mr. Baldwin, really quickly. He had a bit of a bad first half, but he made up for it in the second half. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, but I think you touched about what Scott Parker said. I think the whole team did to an extent. So I think he's, maybe he is just performing, at the same level as the rest of the team. I can't quite put my finger on exactly why he just suddenly came out of his shell. So maybe he was just, impacting more on, the fact that the players, Huddersfield players, were getting tired. I don't know. I can't quite put my finger on why everything went different. But I'm just glad it did.
And when you've got a player in your team who's capable of doing what he did at that, a key point in the game like that, 10 minutes to go, to just put your foot on the ball, take your time, and pick out the top corner, then arguably, it doesn't matter what you do in the rest of the game, because those types of incidents are game-changing moments. And if you've got a player in your team that can change a game, then you play them.
No, exactly. And I think his record is clearly fantastic in this league. And I just think we've been warned already by Wolves fans that he can blow hot and cold sometimes. But I think without a doubt, he is going to be a starter and he will come well. And like I said, like you just said, that the technique for scoring the goal that he did will do so much for his confidence going forward in the next game at Millwall. But we'll talk about Millwall in a minute. Well, let's come on to Mitrovic really quickly and his goal. Mr. Baldwin, what were your thoughts on his goal really quickly?
Right, yeah, it was perfect centre forwards play. That's sort of the thing that we got him before. There was a bit of luck involved in it, in the fact that it came off Huddersfield defender's name, who I can't remember. Quite frankly, I don't care. But excellent build-up by Steven Sessignon in the build-up to put him under pressure like that. And again, it's what I can't say anymore, but it's what he's good at. And when the balls are played into the box like that, and I think that's something we struggled with last season, was a lack of balls going in for him to actually play something with. Everything was slightly more intricate last season. So the fact that we're starting to play a little bit more to his style is fantastic, and we're clearly reaping the benefits of that, as we did on Friday night and we did on Saturday against Blackburn.
Yeah, the thing with Mitrovic is that he's not just... He is that type of player that can pluck a ball out of the air and score with his head. But there's another dimension to his game as well, and we saw that when Cavallero played him through in the second half, and his first shot was blocked. That he ran onto the ball and his shot was blocked, and then he put the follow up over the bar. But yeah, like Baldwin said, the goal that was teed up for him by the Huddersfield defender, as soon as that ball went up into the clouds, he was underneath it, and there was only ever going to be one winner of that header. The poor defender in front of him did not stand a chance. Mitrovic was there, bang, 1-0, and he's straight over to the fans. And that's one of the reasons why I love Mitrovic as well. He always knows where the fans are, and he always goes over doing his little celebration right in front of them. So yeah, and it's great as well, because I feel like he's a confidence player to a certain extent. And last season he did lose his mojo a little bit towards the end of the season, aside from the penalty at Bournemouth. But he's off to a flyer this season, 2 in 3. And we talked last week about how many goals he might get, and we said 25, but if he carries on in this sort of form, then 25 plus.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to talk about one thing. I mean, I think we all know what I'm about to say. Obviously, being in the Championship, Mitrovic is going to be public enemy number one for a lot of defenders. I mean, a lot of defenders are already on him like a white on rice at the moment. However, it's his reaction. I mean, we all know what I'm saying. His play acting to being hit in the face. What are your thoughts on that, Mr. Baldwin? I mean, there is technically contact, but it's no good just rolling around like that.
Exactly. It wasn't necessarily a dive in the common sense. There was, but he definitely made the most of it. Is the best way I can describe it. Was there contact? Absolutely. I think you can see it was just a light scrape. I saw a lot of people comparing it to Rivaldo back in the 2002 World Cup. Anyone who's too young for that, just Google it. It's fantastically funny. So yeah, there was definitely contact. He made the most of it, and we saw reports coming out today he's going to avoid a suspension because the referee deemed to have seen the incident. He got away with it, but I think that's the case. He got away with it. In any other situation, we could very easily be looking at a ban in the same situation for play acting. In that situation, Mitrovic, I love you, but that sort of thing, nah, I'm just completely not a fan of.
Yeah, let's be very clear and very strong with this. Whether there was contact or not, that was real dickish behaviour, and it's got no place at our club. Don't want to see that from Mitrovic again. Keep up with the goals, but piss off with the play acting, mate.
And hopefully Parker will say something like that to him. But I mean, I like I said, I don't think it was a Patrick Bamford situation, but less of that. All right, so let's talk about their goal. Completely unmarked, and do you reckon Bettinelli should do better with this header, Mr. Baldwin?
Yeah, I said it at the time on the Here's for the Sweepstake. They much wanted to be in Film Focus WhatsApp group. That it was odd. If you go down and you slow it down, you see it in slow motion. His arm is somewhat behind the line, which doesn't make sense. If he's reaching, fully outstretched, you have to see it to sort of see what I'm describing. But his arm is slightly backwards, and you think if he just moves his arm forward a couple of, a foot maybe on an angle, rotate it slightly, then there's a better chance for him to get the ball. It just really bugged me out. Could he have done better? Absolutely. But at the same time, the Huddersfield player got an absolutely free header. So there's got to be something said about the defending there as well.
That guy did really well with that header because it was slightly behind him, and he did well to arch his neck round it and even get it on target. But I think what beats Bettinelli is the fact that it clips the inside of the post. And I think if that's a couple of inches to the left towards Bettinelli, then he saves it. But it's just deceived him, the fact that it's come off the inside of the post. And when I saw it at the time, I couldn't understand how it was a goal. It didn't look like it had gone in, but clearly when you see the replay, it was over the line. But I think he was just unlucky.
Yeah, I think you're right. But however, I mean, one shot on target and one goal. I mean, obviously it was the only shot on target, but there is hopefully, we do need to sort of freshen that up if we want to get out of this league. All right, so for their second goal, I just want to give, naturally, Joe Bryan a bit of credit here for how good he is going forward, because he did a lovely little dummy move there as an overlap and gave Ivan Cavallero the space to make that goal happen. I mean, he's looking very, very good at the moment. What were your thoughts on the build-up to that goal, Mr. Boisclair?
I think Joe Bryan is in a similar category to a lot of our players, in the sense that they're excellent Championship players, but possibly not quite good enough for the Premier League, as last season was testament to. But yeah, to answer your question, he did excellently for the second goal, acting as a decoy and made the space for Cavallero, just bought him an extra second or so Cavallero could bend it into the top corner. And I think we'll see that a lot from Joe Bryan this season. He's a very good attacking fullback, good defensively, but good at supporting going forward as well. And as long as he stays fit, then he's going to be a real asset this season for sure.
Yeah, of course, and a beautiful assist as well. Well, a cross in from Steven Sessignon. It's all looking very good, actually, the fullback situation. But there's something going on. I looked at the photos of our team spirit that's going on. You've got the classic photo from last week with Bobby Reid, Knockout, Mitchell and Kenny. There's something that there feels like, maybe I'm just a bit deluded or a bit drunk, I don't know, but I do feel there is a feeling going on. You look at the photos of our players, and that does not look like a team that belong in the playoffs. That looked like an automatic promotion squad to me. Mr. Baldwin, do you get the feeling, I mean, maybe we're just getting carried away, but there is a sort of vibe that this actually could be an automatic promotion season for us finally?
Yeah, I don't know how much you can sort of put into emotion and how much camaraderie and all that sort of stuff plays into it, but I just want to say, as much as I did last time we got promoted, let's calm it down. We're 3 games into the season. I still have a lot of worries about our defence, personally. You mentioned, it was either you or Mr. Boisclair, it is very late, I am tired, about whether or not this team is too good, too good for the Championship, not good enough for the Premier League. Maybe they are. We'll probably find out. But at the moment, it's still very much a work in progress. We still don't know what our, as we alluded to with Bobby Reid, we still don't know what our first team is. So let's just sort of calm it down on the promotion bandwagon, as it were. Yes, there is a good side in here. Whether or not it's good enough to challenge for the automatics or the playoffs, because there are a lot of good teams in this division, and we just have to hope to be one of them. Whether or not we're going to be in the best 2 or 3, I just think it's too early to say right now.
You also don't really know how good the teams that we've faced are either. Blackburn, I would say, would probably finish mid-table. Huddersfield, difficult to say where they're going to finish because they've just sacked their manager, obviously, and depending on who they get in, there's still plenty of time for their team to be revived. But at the start of the season, this early, it's very difficult to kind of know the impact that every team's new signings are going to make, how good they're going to be. For example, Millwall, who we're going to come on to shortly, they've won 2 and drawn one of their opening games so far, and they're kind of in a good position. They're near the top of the table, but will they be there at the start of the season, or have they just played some teams that aren't going to necessarily be that good this season? I don't know. But as far as we're concerned, I think we are a very good side. We've mentioned it so many times already this season, but our attack looks outstanding at this level. Perhaps we're still susceptible to being caught at the back defensively. But personally, I've not seen anything that really concerns me about our defence so far this season. And the midfield looks good as well. So my only question is, at the end of the season, when the table's all sorted out, where will the teams that we have faced so far finish? And we can then look and think, okay, well, Huddersfield, they were mid-table. Blackburn, they were mid-table. Barnsley, maybe they'll be near the top. I don't know. But you can't really decide how good these results are until the season pans out a little bit further and you see quite where all these teams are going to be in the league.
No, I completely agree with you. And I actually think, with our centre-back partnership, it's actually a lot better than I had previously feared. Mawson seems very comfortable as the right-sided centre-back, and as long as he stays healthy, I'm happy. Tim Ream is sporting a beautiful-looking beard at the moment and looks just as good as he did 2 seasons ago in the Championship, but we haven't played the better teams yet, you're right. But in my opinion, there just seems to be something a lot more meat and potatoes about this squad, something a bit more grittier. Maybe it's the robustness of our wing-backs or full-backs, as it were, just actually being a little bit more careful with going forward all the time. There's just a nice mixture going on. I'm excited to see how it evolves into Millwall. Finally, I'll quickly just say that it's quite funny. Jan Stewart has been sacked, and it's just quite strange how this Huddersfield game always has some sort of... It's a bit like, it's a bit jinxed, isn't it? Wouldn't you say, Mr. Boisclair?
Seems to be. I think it was a mistake for Huddersfield to appoint an unknown quantity to, at the stage of the season when they did anyway last season. But arguably, Slav was sacked last season at the right time. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. And, there'll be people that, and we've talked about this so many times already, but there'll be people who would say that it was the wrong time to sack him and with the wrong replacement. But yeah, it's a strange one. Slav lost his job after that fixture last season, and now Jan Sievert's lost his job this season. And who will Huddersfield get? There's rumours of Chris Hughton, and if he comes in, then I can still see them having a good season. So we'll have to wait and see.
And finally, Mr. Baldwin, what is your Scott Parker rating? Also, bear in mind you have the good team talk potentially at half-time.
Yeah, I think taking that half-time team talk into consideration, I'm going to give him an 8, knocking a few points off, because if it takes till half-time for him to be able to work things out and G up the team, then there are going to be a couple of occasions this season where we're not going to be able to have that luxury of being 0-0 at half-time. When a Leeds come in, or West Brom, or maybe even a Derby, I see them being quite good, we may be behind in these games. As we were against Barnsley, for instance. So if it takes 45 minutes for him to G up the team, then there's something a little bit wrong. So I'm going to go for an 8.
I think for me, to get a 10, it has to be the perfect performance from start to finish. This wasn't the perfect performance, but it was a good performance, so I'll agree it's an 8.
Yeah, I'm going to go for an 8 as well. And I've got to say that I've noticing a confidence in Scott Parker, off the pitch as well. There was something about that interview that you mentioned earlier, Boisclair, where he just is seeming a lot more, assured of himself. I mean, he's always been quite a confident guy, but there is just a very nice sort of flow to the way he's speaking at the moment, of confidence. And I do believe you can see that he has this connection with the players. He was very, very chummy with Knockout after the game. And Ivan Cavallero, of course, the players really do want to play for him, and you can see that, and it's all quite exciting in my opinion. But let's see.
Well, momentum's really important in this division as well, and we didn't get momentum when we came up through the playoffs until around about Christmas. So if we can start with momentum this time, as we have done with the Barnsley game to one side, then we're going to have a good season. I really feel like we are.
Nice one. Well, I mean, speaking of momentum, after this we are not going to have a quiz, because we don't have one. So we're going to go straight to the Millwall preview after this.
Fulham.
And welcome back. Now it's time for a little Millwall preview. Good to see them again. Now, I just would actually like to talk really quickly about what we think the atmosphere is going to be like this game, because a lot of people have now moved from the Riverside stand to the Putney end. It's under the lights, and I'm going, and I'm just really intrigued. Do you think... what do you think the likelihood, Mr. Boisclair, is that Millwall behave themselves this game? Their fans, I mean.
Well, I hope that the club have taken provisions for the concourse. I don't know. It's midweek, and there's every chance that people would have been drinking before the game. So I think the club just need to have handled this properly, and they'll only have themselves to blame if there's any trouble. That's all I'll say.
Now, hang on. Now, honestly, personally, I think that you talk about people drinking beforehand. I don't think it's going to be an issue, because people would have knocked off work at 5 o'clock. More than likely, maybe go home, get changed, maybe get something quick to eat, and then make their way over to the game. I don't think there's going to be an opportunity for that sort of thing to happen. It's not like a 3 p.m. Saturday kickoff when you can start drinking at midday sort of thing. So I don't really see that being a problem. However, this will be Millwall have been better. They're not perfect, as their recent things have sort of shown. They're not perfect, but they are better than what they have been in previous years. Let's just put it that way. However, this is going to be a very good test. Let's put it that way for the Putney End, neutral segregation, Riverside Stand, all that thing, all coming in together. It's going to be a very good test. If the club can get away with this, then I think everything's going to be a lot smoother in the future.
Yeah, fair point. And you never know, Millwall fans might like to do what I do and just, stay at the bar the entire time, miss 3/4 of the game and just be an absolute hard ass. I mean, that might be what I'd like to do. Anyway, so...
Just don't miss any goals.
Yeah, I mean, well, pony. So we have a lot of lovely stats from Stato, Mr. Matt Arter. He's great. And this is just, our head-to-head. Fulham have won 19 games out of our facing off with Millwall, and we have drawn 12, and Millwall have won 14. We've met 45 times, and Fulham have only won 5 out of the last 8 meetings. And the last match was at the Cottage on the 25th of November 2017, and it was Fulham 1, Millwall 0, and the goal was an Ollie Norwood penalty. So, I mean, Millwall, narrowly avoided relegation last season, but I feel like, we've talked about the lineup, we know what's going to happen, we think. I think Millwall are actually potentially on a... I mean, they haven't got bad players. I mean, after all, they've just recently signed our own former prodigal son, Matt Smith, Mr. Boisclair.
Oh, prodigal son, I don't know about that, but yeah. Tom Kearney's best mate, Matt Smith, so it'd be interesting to see those two coming up against each other. I think the last time I remember us coming up against him was when he played for QPR, and we were 2-0 up in the run-in to being promoted, and they pegged us back to 2-2 when Dennis Adoy made that slip, and I think he was causing havoc for the equaliser. For their first goal just before half time. But he's off to a flyer this season. He's scored 2 in 3. Millwall have won 2 out of their first 3 games. They beat Sheffield Wednesday at home at the weekend, and they've also drawn away at West Brom. So they look very assured at the moment, and this is going to be no pushover for us. Even though we look good as well, I think this will be a very tough game.
Yeah, you mentioned pushover. I am very much looking forward to seeing the Matt Smith versus Tim Ream battle that is set to take place. 6'13", I'm sure, exaggerating slightly, but all 6 foot plus whatever he is, 6'7", I think he is, of him versus 6'1" Tim Ream is going to be a fascinating battle to see. Whether or not it is basically brains versus brawn. In that department is going to be something good to look at.
So yeah, I've got this list here from Mr. Stato, and actually, we've got Matt Smith and we've got the Sean Hutchinson. These are talking about players that have played for both clubs, of course, and Scott Malone, Barry Hales, but you've got Ryan Fredericks.
Yeah, and that sort of surprised me because I'm assuming this is one of those where when he was on loan, because he started at Tottenham, didn't he? Coming through as a youngster, so it was obviously one of his loans there. So it was brilliant to see all these players. No, I'm just looking at the whole list of players. It's just giving me flashbacks. If Ryan Fraser was obviously the main one because there's obviously the West Ham Millwall connection there. I wonder if any of the West Ham fans managed to pick that one up when they signed him. Scott Malone, mentioned. I didn't know Mike Taylor played for Millwall. Good on him. Hammer Buatsa was a great little side. Again, didn't know he played for them, but it just brings memories flooding back of Hammer Buatsa and for some reason, him constantly being injured with a shoulder injury for that great escape season. But my word, he was fun to watch. Whenever he was there, obviously. Very rarely. Scored a thunderbolt against Man City. I remember that one.
So also looking at Millwall's stats from last season, Millwall scored 22 away goals, averaging 0.96 goals per game. That's a goal for every 94 minutes. Should we be a bit worried about Millwall's form when they actually play away, do you reckon, Mr. Boisclair? They just had a really good game last week.
I think they've won both their home games so far and drawn away at West Brom. So unknown quantity, arguably, away from home so far. But it's still so early in the season, isn't it? I'd be confident that we can get something out of this and we can beat them. But you just don't know at this stage of the season. Like I said earlier, you don't know who's going to be really good this season at this point of the season. All we know really is that some teams have won a couple of games so far. But you don't really know until sort of 7, 8, 9 games into the season who's going to be really, up there. So I don't know. 22 away goals last season from a team that were struggling near the bottom of the table sounds about right. So yeah, we'll see what comes from them this season. I'll take a 1-0 for sure.
Yeah. That being said, the West Brom are amongst one of the bookies' favourites to go up. They're being talked about as one of the promotion teams. So for them to get a draw away to West Brom, even as you say, it's early in the season, still not a bad result in the grand scheme of things.
Well, look, let's talk about their new signings, ones to look out for potentially. So you got their goalkeeper, Frank Fielding, which replaces David Martin. They also signed 2 other keepers on loan. They've got a new centre forward, John Daddy Bodvarsson from Reading. He has 16 goals and 4 assists in 3 championship seasons. They have an attacking midfielder, Connor Mahoney from Bournemouth, which is a very good signing. Managed 2 goals and 4 assists in the championship last senior season with Birmingham. And obviously they have Matt Smith. And Matt Smith got 9 goals and 3 assists during his time at Fulham, but he didn't do bad for QPR either. I mean, this is I don't think this is. They've made some good signings, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you're asking me if I've ever heard of Frank Fielding, John Daddy Bodvarsson, and Connor Mahoney, you're going to be gutted.
This is absolute car crash podcast. Oh God. Okay, fine. Let's just not talk about it. Hold on, no. We got key men last year. You got their key men from last year. You've got striker Gregory Ross said top scorer last year, scoring 14 in the league, assisting 7. We can't release this. This just seems like an insult. We can't. This is just an insult to Stato's work. It's just it's a lot of stuff. Jed Wallace contributed 5 goals and assisted 2. You got a centre back, Jay Cooper, and he was the only player to play every single league game last season. 0.9 interceptions per game and 5.9 clearances per game. These stats are amazing.
5.9. I thought it was 6.1, but 5.9.
It's 5.9.
Oh, well, there you go.
This is great stat.
Stato's a legend.
But, I mean, this is a good one. Fulham most likely to concede in the last 10 minutes based on when Millwall most frequently scored away. Fulham most likely to concede in the last 10 minutes based on when Millwall most frequently scored away. So that's very interesting. And also another one he's put in bold is Fulham also most likely to score in the last 15 minutes based on when Millwall conceded the most. So it just seemed like it could be quite.
Don't leave early.
Don't leave early. Don't go to the bar. I mean, this sounds promising. Both teams unlikely to score in the first 15 minutes is the next stat as well. It sounds like it could all be quite a cagey affair with these stats. Actually, I'm actually quite looking forward to it. Are you going, Mr. Boisclair?
Of course.
Yeah. Mr. Rees. Actually, I'm not going to say that. You're not going, and then it's bad press. I'll just say.
We know he's not. He's doing the review.
He's doing the review. You're doing the pod.
I am, thankfully.
Yeah,
but with the glory that is the EFL, we get to watch it all on the red button. It's lovely.
That is lovely. It's got a lot better.
I assume we do anyway. They haven't changed the rules from last year, have they?
I don't think so.
No, you do. It'll be on the red button. You just don't get any commentary, and it will just be one fixed camera.
Fine by me. At least I can see something.
Yeah,
exactly. All right. What do we think of Sean Hutchinson? Do you think that he might actually get nabbed at some point by a higher-ranking championship team, or has he just found his level with Millwall, would you say, Mr. Reed?
I could say definitively now, no, Sean Hutchinson is not going to get signed by a higher-ranking championship club.
Okay.
No, flat out, no.
Flat out.
However,
no.
I am curious. Does Sean Hutchinson get a standing ovation? Well, not a standing ovation, but does he get applause when he gets back? Does he get booed, or what sort of reception does he get? I'm curious.
I wouldn't even recognise him, to be honest. Wouldn't know what squad number he was. I guess if everybody claps, I'll join in, but otherwise, probably not.
If everybody claps, I'll join in.
I'll join in and clap. What are we clapping for?
Oh, crikey. Mr. Rees, can I have your score prediction, please?
Yeah, you can have my score prediction. Absolutely, you can. I think I'm going to go for similar to what Friday night, 2-1. I still don't have a lot of faith in our defence, so I can see them certainly scoring one. More than likely with Matt Smith, maybe Sean Hutchinson with the flicked on header from a corner, more than likely. And then 2 from us. I'm going to say Anthony Knockaert's going to get his first goal this season, tearing Sean Hutchinson apart. So yeah, 2-1 to us.
And Mr. Boisclair. Oh, you said 1-0.
No. I'm going to quote Tom Kearney, and I think football's going to win this one, and we're going to win 3-0.
Nice. I mean, I've got a feeling that we're going to have maybe a dodgy phase, maybe in the first 15 minutes or so, as maybe stats are predicted. But I think we'll comfortably win. I think about 3-1 will do us. So, looking forward to another 3 points. Here's hoping. That'd be great, wouldn't it? 9 points out of 4 games. Fantastic stuff. Perfect. No, 10 points. No, it would be 9 points. 9 points out of 4 games. Excellent. All right, that's it for me and my co-host. Thank you very much for listening at home. Thank you very much for supporting us. And if you like what you hear, please tell your friends about us. We are on Spotify. We are on iTunes, on the regular Apple podcast app. And we will be back. We will be back with a pod giving our reaction to the Millwall game and previewing the Nottingham Forest game. So once again, thank you to my lovely co-host here. And we will speak to you very, very soon. Thank you.